There are 3 words that changed my life forever. Clear! Hey guys, it's Tyler. For the past 5 years, I have been remaking scenes from the iconic Australian kids TV show H2O Just Add Water. When I started recreating scenes from this show, I had no idea what was in store for me. Over the past 5 years, I've got to meet some of the amazing cast members. I've got to film in the actual locations where they filmed the show. And barely a day goes past now where I'm out in public and someone doesn't run up to me going, Cleo! Which I love. And all of this stems from the fact that I love the show so much. I watched it when I was 12 years old and I was living in New Zealand. Later I moved to Australia, and the first year I lived in Australia I rewatched the show, and I think I've rewatched it every single year since then. And so why is the show so iconic? Why was 12-year-old me so obsessed with the show about 3 girls who when they touch water turn into mermaids? Why is adult me still so obsessed with it? Why do I get messages daily of people telling me this is my husband's new favorite show, this is my child's favorite show, this is my grandparents' favorite show? People love it, and you know why? Because it is freaking amazing. So I'm starting this new series where I am going to go through episodes and we're going to pick them apart. I'm going to use my adult brain to see how I feel about the show now compared to how I felt about it when I was 12 years old. And along the way, I'll tell you some side stories. You guys will get to learn a little bit more about me and my journey with H2O Just Add Water. So thank you very much for being here. And there's only one more thing I can say. Let's go! Okay, so backstory for episode 1. I started to see all of the ads for this new show, this new Australian TV show about mermaids. H2O Just Add Water. Water, just add water. So much water. And the thing that got me straight away is that I saw that it was filmed on the Gold Coast in Australia. Now, it had been a lifelong dream of mine to go to the Gold Coast because for those of you who don't know, the Gold Coast is like, for Americans or anyone who knows America, the Gold Coast is Australia's Florida or Orlando, really. It's like the theme park central, amazing weather, tourist destination, beaches. It was always my dream to go there, to go to all the theme parks because I'm so obsessed with roller coasters and have been for my entire life. So I saw the ads for the show and I was like, hey, it's filmed on the Gold Coast. I want to go there. Let's give the show a try. I was not ready for what was in store. To give you some context, my favorite show up until this point was Lost, which I think only came out like a year before, 2 years before, a year before the show came out. So that was the kind of thing that I was consuming. I was also at that age, 12 years old. I was like, I'm an adult. I'm going to stop watching Disney Channel. I did not. So I remember when it premiered on Disney Channel in New Zealand, interestingly enough. And I was immediately hooked. Let's discuss H2O Season 1, Episode 1, Metamorphosis. And let's see how I felt about it then and how I feel about it now. The show begins with Emma Gilbert, who is a teen athlete. And she is swimming through that water. She is a champion. And her friend Cleo, who's so cute and so sweet, is helping her train. Being from New Zealand, I had consumed a lot of Australian content growing up. One of my favorite childhood films is Napoleon, not the American dubbed version, the Australian dubbed version, which is incredibly iconic. You must watch it. And I love the show Home and Away. At the time, hearing the accent it didn't even cross my mind because I was like, this is a very contentious subject. Being from New Zealand and living in Australia, I definitely think there are big differences between the New Zealand and Australian accent. But comparing like New Zealand Australian to American is then very, very different. Anyway, we see Emma as a budding athlete and Cleo is helping her train.
So cool.
So cool. And then Cleo decides to go for a walk around the marina and we hear, Cleo, Cleo. And the first time I heard that, I remember I started saying to my sister, Cleo, Cleo, because it's just so fun to say. It's so delicious in the mouth. And we are introduced to Zane Bennett. Typical Australian Gold Coast bad boy with the board shorts and the billabong top. This was when emo culture was really like beginning. When the other crazy things for New Zealanders and Australians is that a lot of the wardrobe was just off the rack, was from like Supre, iconic, Billabong, Quicksilver. So it was like recognizable clothes. Like I would see my friends wearing the same clothes. Zane basically asked Cleo to help out with his boat, which is not working. And she's like, okay, because she's so sweet. Oh, Cleo, I love you. She gets into the boat and Zane is like, someone stole my spark plug and it's not working. And Cleo's like, does it work without one? And he unties the rope and pushes her out. Bloody bastard. And then we figure out that it's a funny little trick Zane is playing on Cleo. Cleo's like, why me? I didn't steal your spark plug. And you know what he says? Because you're here, Cleo.
Because you're here, Cleo.
So Cleo is floating out to sea on the Zodiac. She doesn't know what to do. And then the savior arrives. This girl runs and does like an insane jump, which is totally her, onto the boat. And Cleo's like, is this supposed to be some sort of rescue?
Is this supposed to be some sort of rescue?
I'm like, whoa, Cleo, maybe she's actually trying to help you. But then she reveals that she's the one who took the spark plug. She says that Zane Bennett is a pig. And look, I completely agree. Like, he is a pig. And I'm all for Ricky for messing around with him. Then Cleo is like, thanks, Ricky. And she's like,
You know my name.
you know my name. We get the realization that Ricky has actually just arrived on the Gold Coast, and it's implied that she's an outcast. She doesn't really have any friends. I just remember thinking, I connected with Ricky right away, and we will talk about this more, but I'm always such a sucker for the outcast, the underdog. I guess because I relate to that. The person who wants connection, and you can see that she wants connection. I mean, she jumped on the boat for this girl, and then she fixes the boat, and they drive off together. To say goodbye to Zane the pig, she splashes him. And I think it's so sweet. And then we get a montage of Ricky driving Cleo around, trying to get Cleo to have fun, come out of her shell. And I think it's so sweet. And I think immediately the connection between these girls is just formed so well. Ricky saves Cleo. It's like polar opposites. Ricky's like a badass. Cleo's like very naive, sweet, anxious. And there's something really nice forming here. Then they're driving along, and of course they see Emma walking, and Cleo says, hey Emma, wanna ride? And of course, Emma, showing her character immediately, calls out to Ricky, are you licensed? Into which Queen Ricky iconically replies, are you my mother? I mean, look, the script just writes itself. I wish that I was able to be in that writer's room. Incredible. I love it. After some sassy looks to the camera, Emma joins them. They're driving around, they're in the boat, and Ricky says, want to go out to sea. Now, I remember this was significant for me. Growing up in New Zealand around boats, it was drilled into me from a young age, as it should be, that you always wear a life vest. Always wear a life jacket, life vest. Something that is really interesting about this show, and I don't know if it was in the Australian culture or there were other reasons, but the characters never wear life vests. And this is interesting to me because I know that in New Zealand around this time, there were so many like PSAs about always wear your life vest, make sure children wear their life vests. Like it was such a big thing. And so to see kids on TV driving around in boats not wearing life vests was always, I just noticed it. I was always like, oh, this is like crazy that they're never wearing their life vests. Anyway, Ricky says, let's go out to sea. And Emma's like, are you sure it's safe in a craft this size? And I was like, no, it's not safe. No. I remember I was like, oh, it's going to go down. It's going to not be good. And Ricky's like, chill out. It's fine. I know. So they go out to sea and they break down. And oh God, there's so many things I love about this show. It's so iconic. I love how the camera pans underwater. You can see the bottom. The water that they're in is like a few feet deep, but they're in the middle of the ocean. But it's fine. We buy it. We're like, yeah, sure. They're in the middle of the ocean. This is the first time that we get to see the dynamic of the three, and it is so interesting. So we have Ricky, the reckless, badass one, Cleo, the shy, reserved one, and then Emma, the confident but very overly rule-abiding one in this situation of being stranded at sea. Ugh. And then Ricky's like, let's paddle to that island. Cue the music. Side note, the original score of the show is incredible. It is the best scored children's television show of all time, by far. And while I definitely admit that it is almost obviously very influenced by Thomas Newman, who is my favorite film composer, who did things such as Finding Nemo, American Beauty, The Help, Saving Mr. Banks, it very much is inspired by that, but the composer did an incredible job. The music throughout the series is just incredible. As I unironically watch the show, I still unironically listen to the music of the show as well. And then Emma's like, no way, forget about it. And then Cleo says, no one goes there. It's surrounded by sharks and reefs and mangroves.
It's surrounded by sharks and reefs and mangroves.
Queen, iconic. No notes. Where were their Emmy Awards? How did the show win no Emmy Awards? They decide that's their only option, so they paddle to Mako Island. They get to the island, and Cleo's like, how are we ever gonna get back home? And Emma's like, ask your friend. I hate to say this, look, I love Ricky so much, but Emma is totally in the right. What was Ricky thinking? She wasn't. She wasn't thinking, unfortunately. But I still love her. Emma gets out her phone, which is the iconic Motorola flip phone. Ugh, so many people I know had that phone. And of course, there's no signal. Emma suggests they get to higher ground. Smart. Okay, she's good in a crisis. You know why? Because Emma's always really prepared. So they venture into Mako Island to try and find some signal. This is where we get the quintessential Australian bush with the snakes and the spiders, and it blows my mind, the cinematography, everything that went into the show, when, no hate, because I love Disney Channel so much, but all of the shows on Disney Channel at the time were like single camera, right? They were just like single camera sitcoms on a set, and H2O was just doing something so unique to children's television at the time. It was incredible, and this is why I'll defend the show to the ends of the earth. They come across a waterfall. Emma and Ricky jump across, and Cleo's like, I can't do this, it's too slippery. And then drama ensues. Cleo falls down the hole into a cave, shook. She says there's no way she can get out of the cave, and so Emma's like, I'm going to go down and get her. And Ricky's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then she goes down. So now two of them are stuck in the cave. And then 3 seconds later, Ricky comes down. And Emma says, what are you doing here? You were meant to stay up the top and throw down a rope or something. And then Ricky replies, what am I? A mind reader? And what rope? The script is so good. I can't even. The dialogue is so iconic. And then Cleo's the one to say, shouldn't we find a way out of here? Let's go. Let's find a way out of here. Cleo's gaining her confidence. They look around the cave and they arrive at a pool of water. This pool of water is ingrained into my brain for the rest of my life. The way that I wanted to visit this place, the way I wanted this set up in the basement of my house and still do, it is just so incredible. I've always, my whole life, I don't know what this is. This must have been something from like 3 or 4 years old. I've always had this affinity with colored lights and colored lights underwater. And so to see this pool that has just lit that blue color was incredible. Then Ricky's like, this is like the cone of a volcano. And of course, Cleo's like, it's not going to erupt, is it? And Emma's like, no, Cleo, no. Emma then notices that there's tidal rings, and being the champion swimmer that she is, knows that that means that it's a way out because the water of the pool rises and falls. So of course she jumps in the pool and swims out. She discovers there is a way out and is like, okay, let's swim out. And Cleo is like, no way, I can't swim. This is like life or death situations at this point. Would I want to swim out of a dark cave? No, definitely not. Then eventually they convince Cleo that there's no other way out, so they all get in the pool. One of the most iconic moments in TV history. The full moon goes over the volcano and the water in the pool bubbles and magical specks fly out and something is happening, something magical. And again, the music is phenomenal. Okay, going back, this is what I actually find very funny as an adult. Because I was obsessed with Lost. Like, next level obsessed. And I'm definitely going to do more videos talking about Lost because I love that show so much. This moment is giving Lost. The mystery, the mythology, the questions, the unknown, the reason for this all happening in this moment. This happens and then they're like, okay, let's go. They make it out and then the water police, which is a thing.
This is the water police.
Pick them up and they're rescued. Great. Adventure over. They made it. They survived. Nothing else will happen, right? Next morning, day after, Emma heads down to the beach for her daily swim. She's an athlete. I respect her commitment. She dives into the water. And suddenly, a sound is heard, and she grows a tail. We then transition to a Cleo in her bathtub with a very shocked face. And we zoom out to see a tail. Let's talk about these tails because these are the most realistic looking tails that I have ever seen portrayed in a movie or TV show about mermaids. What I really, really liked from the beginning, and I know that there is discussion around this, I like that they actually look like fish. To me, that the orange scaliness of it is just so believable. And for me, as a 12-year-old boy, put it into the realm of like mythology because they so could have easily made them like a sickly pink sweet. I really felt like these were like genuine mer people. And I love how the top, it doesn't make it look like they're wearing something over them. It's like an extension of their body. Their top is something that grows, is like a part of them. Like they wouldn't be able to take it off. Not to take away from iconic things like the 13th Year, because that was iconic and I did watch that as a child, but it's very like dramatic mermaid. The mum wears the like the crown that's all got the like the seashells on it and stuff. But these are mermaids. These are real mermaids. This is the real deal. Then we see Ricky who's going for a walk in the park and a sprinkler sprays her with a single drop of water, which created this moment that my friend and I did to each other constantly. What I think is incredible is she gets hit with this little speck of water and she's like, ah. My friend Nicole and I, when we were at high school, if we used to see each other from across the hallway, we would go, ah. Thanks, Nicole, for sharing that moment with me. And of course, she falls and grows the tail. Now, I am so impressed with Kariba Hine, who plays Ricky, and all of the girls, and all of the cast, in fact. Their acting instincts were phenomenal for that age. This show, for everything that it is, for the campiness, there are all of these very real moments that I think rival many adult actors. The moment that Ricky grows a tail, and the look on her face and her expression as she sees this completely out of worldly, bizarre experience that has happened is just, it's perfect. She could have been like, oh my God. But it's such a real reaction. Thank you, Kariba. The girls all go around to Cleo's house and they talk about what is happening, what has happened, why are we growing tails when we touch water? When of course there's a knock at the door. And who could it be? Cleo says, oh no.
Oh no.
We get the iconic quote. It's Lewis. Lewis is Cleo's friend who's coming around to help her study. Enter the king, Angus McLaren, who is now a friend of mine and I will say again, was just so phenomenal on the show. He comes in and is like, what is going on? Did I get the time wrong? And Cleo's like, you have to go. Bye. And before he leaves, she's like, Lewis, you're smart. Do you know anything about mermaids? And Emma and Ricky are like, what the Cleo? And then he leaves and Cleo's like, what? And Ricky's like, do you know anything about mermaids? Are you crazy? Which fairly so. I mean, Cleo does not have the ability to understand the gravitas of this situation, but Emma and Ricky do. I really, really like this dynamic because obviously Emma and Ricky are like the established enemies, but this thing has brought them together. This understanding of like, they immediately see it for what it is. They're like, if anyone found out about this, like, we're cooked. Like, that's it. We're done. And then Ricky, again, very wisely says, the only way to know is for us to go back in the water. And Cleo's like, no way, I'm not going back in the water. She doesn't want to deal with it. She's shut out. Ricky wants to explore it. And Emma, being the smart, analytical person who she is like, well, yes, we need to discover this. What's happening? Emma and Ricky go to the beach. Emma's like, I'm not sure about this. And Ricky's like, I am. She's like owning it. She's owning her mermaidness. They walk towards the water, and this is such a little directorial moment, and it really got me as a child, and it gets me even more as an adult. I love how they grab each other's hands, and for those of you who know me, for those of you who have been watching my videos, you know I'm a very emotional guy. When it comes to characters, for me it is all about compelling characters and how they are relating to the world and to each other. This little moment of holding hands for me really signifies what I was saying, that these two girls who would never ever be friends or have anything in common are now bound to each other with this secret, and it brings them together. That relationship between Emma and Ricky continues throughout the series in a very beautiful way. And so they step into the water, and of course they grow their tails and fall over and give each other a look of, well, this is our life now. And then we get our first montage of them swimming as mermaids. And guys, it's amazing how everything in the show is real. There is very limited CGI of when they transform, but these girls were wearing these extraordinarily crafted tails and are literally swimming in a tank. The same tank that I got to swim in a few years ago. Swimming with sharks and dolphins and marine life is actually insane. Cleo goes to the Juice Net Cafe, the most iconic spot in town, and finds Lewis researching mermaids, and now she understands. She's starting to get the like, oh, actually, I can't just be talking about this thing that has happened. And Lewis is like, I have way too much time on my hands, so I'm going to research about mermaids. Then they go for a walk, and Lewis is like, you know, the mythology has been around for this many years, and this guy, he's a great guy, Lewis. He's everything I could want in a character. He's confident, he's independent, unashamed of having a group of friends who are girls. Iconic. And then we hear the roar of a motorbike, and once again, we get Cleo's iconic, Arnar.
Oh no.
It is Zane, out for his revenge. Zane wants revenge because he feels like Cleo made a fool out of him because the water police had to knock on his dad's door to return the Zodiac. Zane becomes very hostile and gives some very big threats, which firstly is very disturbing, but secondly, I like that they went that way with the character. I like that they raised the stakes and was like, he's a crazy guy. And Lewis jumps right into defense mode of Cleo, which again is so endearing. Basically, Lewis is like, to get to Cleo, you're going to have to go through me. Cleo sees a fire hydrant, which do not exist in Australia. Okay, Australians, maybe. I've never seen a fire hydrant like that in Australia, like an American fire hydrant. She starts doing this with her hand and noticing that the water is reacting to her. Zane continues to threaten her. She continues doing this, and suddenly the cap bursts off, sprays Zane, sends him down the hill, and Cleo has done something amazing. She runs off, and we go to Emma and Ricky, who are walking back to the house after having just come out of the ocean, and they're both like, oh my god, that was the most incredible thing ever. They're starting to see that maybe this is a gift, maybe this is a good thing. And Cleo comes running, wait! And they go inside, and Cleo demonstrates her newfound power. She has the power to manipulate water. She grows the water, she loses focus, and the water is about to splash on Ricky and Emma puts her hand up like this, and it freezes. And then Emma's like, did I do that? Was that me? And then Ricky is like, so excited. I've got tingles now. Ricky is so into this. She loves it. And then Emma realizes that she has the power to freeze things. Very iconically, Ricky goes, Spider-Man. And Ricky sees that she doesn't have a power and she's like, this isn't fair. Why don't I get to do cool stuff like this? We see that Cleo is like, I don't want this. This isn't cool. It's scary. Emma owns in on the fact that the three of them are in this together and this is their secret and they're going to work it out together. They may not know what's going on, but at least they have each other, which gets me every time. And that's the end of the first episode. I remember watching this episode and immediately I was hooked. And as I say, this is a very funny comparison. I think at the time in my brain, I really did draw comparisons, and I still do to this day, comparisons between this show and a show like Lost. Characters who end up in a bizarre situation, they only have each other to rely on to figure things out. They need to connect with each other to understand the mythology of this crazy, supernatural, otherworldly thing that is occurring. And if they don't have each other, they have nothing. Live together, die alone. So in all honesty, I think the way that I feel about this episode now is very similar to how I felt about it when I first watched it when I was 12. When I spoke to Angus for the first time, he said this comment about how everyone was calling it lightning in a bottle. I totally agree watching this now. For everything that was happening in the world at the time and also in film and television, all the factors came together to create this. If any of you who are watching this have not watched this show before, or if you love the show, I would really recommend watching it or showing this episode to someone you think wouldn't be the demographic audience. So your dad or your brother or your cousin, or I'm using male because that's the society. Anyone who you think wouldn't be the demographic for this. And I think you'll be really surprised by their reactions because it is very compelling. In my next video, I'm going to talk about episode 2 and see how the story continues, see how I feel about that episode compared to how I felt when I first watched it. And as you guys can tell, I just love talking about the show. I'm also remaking many scenes from H2O. I've just posted a whole bunch of shorts of new scene remakes that I've never remade before. And I'm going to be doing more. I'm back in my H2O era. It's back. Thank you guys so much for watching this. If you did enjoy it, please give me a subscribe. You guys all know me from doing my shorts, which I absolutely love doing, but I love getting to do these longer videos, getting to talk, getting to dissect and analyze things. That's also a huge passion of mine, especially when it comes to acting and TV shows and movies and Broadway. So I would really love to continue doing this. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. I love you all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!